All right, guys, I'm so excited to have today's guest on. She is the founder and executive director of Moms Across America Publishing, also has a book called Unstoppable, also the producer of Communities Rising, and she's been featured on ABC, CNN, Dr. Oz, C-SPAN, Fox News, and many more. And also, she is the mom of three boys. I'm so excited to have on today Zen Honeycutt. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel today.
Thank you, Steve. I'm really glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your story, your mission, what it is that you're trying to get the word out on.
Sure. Yeah. Moms Across America is a national coalition of unstoppable moms. We're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. And I started this organization 12 years ago because my children had all kinds of allergies. And I'm sure many of your listeners will be able to relate. They had almost 20 to 21 different food allergies and intolerances, autism symptoms at one time, asthma, autoimmune issues. And my then husband and I, at the time, that we never had those problems when we were kids. So it was extremely concerning. And so I started Moms Across America to raise awareness about GMOs, and we wanted them labeled. First of all, I didn't want them in the food supply at all, but we were working to have them labeled to raise awareness about them. And then we learned about glyphosate and toxins. And I started Moms Across America with the first event was to join into 4th of July parades. And that was to raise awareness about GMO labeling. Moms Across America marched to label GMOs. We joined into 4th of July parades and raised awareness with thousands locally and millions nationally in a single day. And our moms had 179 groups and parades that day, and 600 leaders created over 1,000 events in all 50 states within the next 5 years. Our
Wow.
reach on Facebook when we first got started was 300,000 a week. And just in less than 3 months, I had no staff. I was just starting it because I wanted safe food. And so we've grown to be this national and international organization and group of not just women, but of men, it's mothers and others who want actions and solutions to create healthy communities. So we're out to really transform the food supply and health in America and beyond. And we really appreciate your partnership in getting the news out.
Wow, that is awesome. And I'm very excited to be able to be a part of it. So you guys discovered that GMOs were one of the main issues. How did you get from that point? Give me a little bit of background on how that started. Like, how did you even discover, like you said, that was originally with your kids having some health issues?
Mhm. Yeah, it wasn't easy because when I learned about GMOs, it was from Robin O'Brien, another mom who had a TED talk called Patriotism on a Plate. And her child ate during breakfast, her child broke out in rashes. She's like, what's going on? And then she learned about the food supply and learned about GMOs, predominantly from Jeffrey Smith, who made a movie called Genetic Roulette. So I watched her TED talk. I watched his movie, and I was like, this must be what's going on with my kids. I felt deeply betrayed by what was going on with the government because the government had not told us. It was not in mainstream media news for nearly 20 years. At that point, it was 17 years. GMOs had been in the food supply. So corn, soy, sugar beets, canola, anywhere from 85 to 100% of those crops had been switched over during that 17 years. And they were growing in the United States without our knowledge. And they were going into our food supply without being labeled. Now, some people might have heard of GMO tomatoes, the tomato that was genetically engineered with a fish gene in order to not be hurt by the frost. But that was a mushy tomato and it didn't go far. And I heard about that when I was in the late 90s and when I was in my early 20s. And when I talked to people about it, they looked at me like I had a third eye. I was like, how can they do this? How can they change the food and not label it? How can they genetically engineer it with an animal and not let us know? And I was upset about it, but then it went away in the news and I didn't hear about it again until my children were very small but had multiple allergies, asthma, autism, autoimmune issues, all those things. And I was like, wait a second. I did not know that these corn and soy and sugar beets and canola and all these GMOs had been in the food supply for 17 years. And things started to make sense. And I started to put two and two together and learned about it through various movies and books and really got very upset about it. That's what sparked it. It was really just my children, wanting my children to be safe.
Wow. So for people that don't know, so a GMO, so they're essentially changing the genetic makeup of the crops and the food.
Yes, they're genetically altering them in a lab. And I want to be very clear, these are not hybrids. These are not two species that they're just fusing together like grafting on a tree. That's a hybrid, two different kinds of plums. we'll make a new kind of plum. That's not what this is. This could not happen in nature. It's in a lab. And there's three kinds of GMOs, genetically modified organisms. The first one is called Bt toxin GMOs, and that stands for Bacterotherogenesis. That is a bacteria taken from the carcass of a dead grain caterpillar, and they genetically manipulate that bacteria to constantly reproduce more toxins. Normally, when it's used in organic farming, that bacteria dissipates after about 4 hours and it's no longer harmful. Like it wouldn't harm a flea. It wouldn't harm humans or anybody. It's used in organic farming, but when it's genetically engineered to constantly reproduce more toxins, then it's put into it's genetically engineered to be in every cell of the corn plant, for instance, in the root, in the stalk, in the corn, all of it. When the corn rootworm comes along and eats a little bit of the root of the corn, that Bt toxin reproduces, and explodes the stomach of the bug that eats it. And that's why it dies. Now, that is sounding suspiciously similar to me with this epidemic of children who have gut dysbiosis and adults who have allergies, holes in their small intestines.
Wow.
Gee, I wonder if it could be related, especially when Robin O'Brien says that there's been a 400% increase in ER allergy visits, right? This is documented in hospitals. When a child comes in for an ER, for a food allergy into the ER, they're almost going to die from a food allergy. That number has increased 400% since GMOs were introduced. And that gut dysbiosis, those holes in the small intestines cause not only allergies, but all types of inflammation. They could be connected to other things such as Crohn's and IBS. We don't know. There hasn't been studies on that. But the gut issues definitely are connected to inflammation in the brain, connects to autism, all types of inflammation and chronic illness. So the first type of GMO is genetically engineered to be a pesticide. The second type of GMO is genetically engineered to resist herbicides. It's called HT, herbicide tolerant, or Roundup Ready is the most common one. 80% of GMOs are genetically engineered to withstand Roundup, or otherwise known as its glyphosate herbicides, right? There's many different brands of glyphosate herbicides. Roundup is one of them. So that crop can be sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent by airplane or tractor, but with glyphosate herbicide, and the crop will not die, but the weeds will. So
Wow.
that crop is herbicide tolerant, right? Now, the problem with that is that glyphosate herbicides do not wash, dry, or cook off. They go into the plant and we consume them. All those residues could be some very high levels, and we are not Roundup Ready. We are impacted by glyphosate, and glyphosate is a carcinogen. It's an endocrine disruptor. It causes kidney and liver disease. It causes neurotoxicity. It causes nervous system damage, sperm damage. It androgenizes baby girls. There are studies to show this. It increases miscarriage and prenatal births and prenatal deaths. It is very harmful, even at very low levels, like the ultra low levels, like is linked to liver disease and endocrine disruption. So there's the GMO that's got a built-in pesticide. There's a GMO that resists herbicides. It becomes therefore a chemical transport to humans, has us consume this chemical. And then the third type of GMO is what I call DT, desired trait, just to go along with a BT and HT. The DT is desired trait. It encompasses the CRISPR and gene drive types of GMOs that are genetically engineered for desired trait. For instance, more vitamin A, or there's some type of strawberry out there, or some type of plant that glows in the dark. There's more vitamin A in rice. There's potatoes that don't brown and apples that don't brown. But keep in mind, they're still rotting. You just don't see the rotting. You could smell the rotting, but you don't see the rotting. And this type of potato, for instance, is a simplot potato and can be found in fast food and other types of restaurants in America. And they're using this GMO potato for French fries. And the problem with this third type of GMO is that even though it sounds fine, desired trait like more vitamin A, or fish that grow fatter and faster and they're sterile, the problem with them is that they cause thousands of off-target mutations and unintended consequences. And I don't know about you, but I have enough to worry about with my kid with inappropriate media and school and homework and girls and boys and all that. I have enough to worry about. I don't need to worry about unintended consequences and off-target mutations in the food that I feed my kids. I want the food that I'm feeding my kids to be very intentional, and I don't want any kind of mutations. So I am extremely concerned about GMOs in the food supply, and I don't think they should just be labeled. I think they should be out of the food supply because there really are no human studies showing that they are completely safe. In fact, there's a lot of studies showing that they're harmful.
Wow. Yeah. And so they've got these three different types that they're doing. And so the purpose of this, the reasoning behind, I'm trying to like think, man, why would they even be doing this? Is essentially to mass produce crops and, like you said, to get desired outcomes for the food to last longer or to be resistant. But there's no, what foods is this in? Is it in basically everything? Like I'm trying to,
First of all, they say it's to feed the world. They say that we are going to be having a population explosion and that there's no way that conventional farming is going to be able to feed the world. And I have to tell you, that is malarkey. First of all, we're
mm,
seeing a decline in the human population of devastating levels. Japan and Korea, South Korea especially, which by the way have some of the highest levels of glyphosate in their food supply anywhere in the world because of bullying from the American president, pushing them to have 600% higher glyphosate levels than they had before as far as residues go. So Japan and South Korea and places like that have a lot of problems because of the American food supply. So they say it's to feed the world, right? And that is a noble quest. I appreciate that. But their basis is that there's going to be an explosion of the human population and we won't be able to feed them. The fact is, we have a decline in the human populations. And the reason is because of this GMO monocrop chemical farming. The chemicals on the crops are causing a decline in fertility and sperm quality and prenatal births and miscarriages. So we are going to be having less human beings born than far less than they have predicted. And the food is the reason for that. In addition, they say that they want to support this whole climate change problem and grow crops that will be resistant to heat and drought. And while I'm a huge fan of that I'm a huge fan of being able to have crops that are more viable. The fact is that as soon as they tweak one little thing about this crop and the seed, they upcharge 375% increase in some cases of technology fees and make the farmers beholden to buying those same seeds every year. They can't grow the crop and then save the seeds and replant the same seeds. They have to buy new seeds every year and put themselves into debt. And they put these farmers on this treadmill of it's like a slavery or feudalism where they're beholden to these big seed companies. And then they also
wow.
have to buy the chemicals to grow them. Do you know what I mean? It's like this whole
Hmm.
trap that they become a part of. And and the fact is that the yields can be a little bit better for the first year or two, but then they just start to decline and the nutrient quality is less and the profits are fewer than from selling organic. And these crops destroy the soil. The process of growing GMO crops, monocrops, right? It's not biodiverse crops with spraying chemicals and adding in chemical fertilizers decreases the quality of the soil. It becomes degenerating to the soil. And that when the soil quality decreases, the potential of pests and like plagues across the crops and nutrient density reduces. And so the viability of the crop declines and the quality of the soil declines in such a way that the farmers are then destroying the ability of that soil to produce good quality crops for their children and grandchildren. They're basically destroying their legacy by using these toxic chemicals on the farm.
Wow. So, okay. So this has been going on for how long, you said?
About 40 years now.
And is this just like prevalent in all the foods that we're eating?
So GMO soy and corn and canola and sugar beets are present in at least 75%. It could be 85% of processed foods,
Wow.
cereals, breads, pastas, crackers, cookies, chips. The oils that are used, anytime you see anything like vegetable oil or canola oil, corn oil, soy oil, that's most likely like 95% chance it's going to be GMO, unless it says organic. If it's organic, then it won't be GMO and there won't be toxic chemicals used.
That was my
But
next question was like, okay, so if this is prevalent in like cereals and all this, how do I know what doesn't have GMOs? Like, how do I know what to feed myself and my family?
the only way that you can avoid GMOs really is to buy organic. There are products and there's a label called non-GMO project, which project verified, which tests for GMOs and then only allows for 0.9% of the ingredients to be GMO. So they do test and verify that. However, the non GMO Project Verified has nothing to do with glyphosate and other toxic chemicals. So you can buy non GMO Project Verified, say rice crackers or corn or soy crackers, but they could be highly contaminated with glyphosate because they're not organic. So if you're going to be looking for labels in the grocery store, I would encourage you to look for USDA organic or USDA organic and non-GMO project verified. Because the problem with USDA organic is that they don't test and verify. They just say you can't use GMOs and you can't use glyphosate and toxic chemicals, but they don't test and verify. There's no monitoring of that happening. They say that they do test every once in a while, like the USDA, and yeah, the USDA does test some samples, but the levels that they allow in, especially in conventional food, are so high of these of agrochemicals that it really is nonsensical for protecting human health. And so, yeah, so looking for USDA organic and non-GMO project verified together is the best. There's new labels out now called Regenerative Organic Certified, and there's another one called Real Organic Project. There are other labels that are also beneficial to people. The Real Organic Project mostly focuses on growing food in soil and not in hydroponically, in like warehouses hydroponically, which I agree is ideal to grow food in soil. However, a lot of the soil now is contaminated with heavy metals. So food that is grown hydroponically is actually has less heavy metals and may not have the spraying in the sky or chemicals or drift. You know what I mean? Because they're covered in a greenhouse. The regenerative organic certification means that the crops are grown with cover crops, with animal grazing, with no to low tilling. So the soil quality is going to be regenerating every year, and the soil quality will likely have higher nutrients and will sequester more carbon, will sequester more water when it rains. So it'll be more drought resistant, and the crop will be healthier and be more nutrient. And what we have found being more nutrient dense in most cases. So regenerative organic certified is like it's the wave of the future, so to speak. There's a whole movement happening, but be careful because some people are talking about regenerative, but not regenerative organic.
Yeah.
And we really believe that you cannot regenerate the soil if you're still spraying glyphosate and toxic chemicals, right? So it needs to be regenerative organic.
And you said these labels they should be on the boxes on the items you're buying, or do you have to go to
Yes.
like a website to get the research information? Or
You can look in the grocery store at on the labels. Regenerative organic certified is going to be very far and few. It's just started a couple years ago, but USDA organic and non-GMO project verified have been around for I don't know how long now, at least 15 years. So you can find a lot of products with both of those labeled on there.
and you said that the levels are just incredible. The amount that people are exposed, like what's okay and what's not okay. Because I heard you say like 0.9, 90% of 1% or something, like less than 1% is okay. Like at what point is what does it look like as far as like exposure?
Right. So, just for an example, Seralini did a study and tested rats that ate zero point 0.1 parts per billion of glyphosate herbicides, zero point 0.1 parts per billion. So, not even 1 part per billion, zero point 0.1 for 2 years. And they showed an increase of liver disease, kidney disease, sex hormone changes. That's very low levels. And what we've found, for instance, in protein powders or so Detox Project found 54 parts per billion. We found 34 parts per billion in wine. We found levels 3,000 times higher than that zero point 0.1 parts per billion. So I don't, what was that, 30? I'm not sure. I don't remember right now, but in breast milk, we found 8.7 parts per billion in my son. That's the level of a farmer of
Wow.
glyphosate. And that's because he was eating wheat sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent. So wheat, peas, beans, legumes, oats, barley, sorry, beer drinkers, hops can all be sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent before harvest. And so there could be many parts per billion of glyphosate on many times higher, is my point, than what has been shown to cause liver disease and cause sex hormone changes. And the problem with it is that the consistent long-term exposure of this chemical over time can really do a job on your liver, your pancreas, your kidney, your gut microbiome. It's actually an antimicrobial. And so it destroys the beneficial gut bacteria and allows for the proliferation of the pathogenic gut bacteria. And that means it disrupts your serotonin levels, your hormone levels, your melatonin levels, so you don't sleep as well. It disrupts so much about your immune system. Your gut is the stronghold of your immune system. So there's a lot of problems related to consuming even very low levels of glyphosate on a consistent basis. It's basically a major contributing factor of the decline of the human population in America and around the world. There's a scientist named Dr. Don Huber, who's one of our advisors, who says that we're going to look back in history and see that glyphosate makes DDT look like mouthwash.
Wow. So, so this is prevalent, right? So like, I'm thinking like, as you're saying this, I'm like, man, like sometimes I have like a lot of gut issues and stuff like that. I'm wondering like, is there like a detox process that people can go through? Like you said that your son, you realized that he had exposure to this. What steps did you guys start taking to, I'm guessing like you've managed to help him recover and get on the right track. What should somebody do if they're thinking like, oh, maybe this is something that I'm dealing with?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we did was I looked at what he was eating and I realized, wait a second, he's my only son that didn't show up with an allergy to gluten. My other two sons did. So while we didn't really have a lot of gluten in the house, very little, my then husband could eat it and one of my sons could eat it. So every once in a while we had a little bit, but mostly we didn't have any gluten in the house. I was gluten intolerant as well. So my middle son that could eat gluten, we thought anyway, was eating the burger bun at a restaurant we went out, the tortilla wrap at certain places. He would eat a flour tortilla instead of corn. He would eat cookies at Nana's house, those types of things. And what we realized was that when he had 8.7 parts per billion of glyphosate in his urine and his brothers did not, no detectable levels, I was like, that's the only thing that's different in their diets is that he's consuming wheat. And so what we did was we removed wheat from his diet, but when we gave him gluten-free food instead, we did as much as we could to make sure it was organic. And back then that was very difficult. The only organic bread was something that tasted like cardboard. Really tricky. And we also took out sugar out of his diet, processed sugar, because the sugar feeds the bad gut bacteria and contributes to the problem. And we did give him sauerkraut, kombucha, kefir. Those are good probiotics. We did have to give him an antifungal and an antimicrobial for a little bit because when we tested him and found the glyphosate levels in it, we also found that he had C. diff and pathogenic gut bacteria and fungus, all kinds of gut problems. So when he sorted out those gut issues, within 6 weeks, we retested him and he no longer had detectable levels of glyphosate and he also no longer had the autism symptoms.
Wow.
And so 6 weeks and the kicking, the screaming, the erratic behavior, the grades dropping, the tantrums basically at 8 years old they went away and they only come back. That type of erratic behavior only comes back when he eats total junk food. And he knows that. So it is possible for people to recover from those types of health issues. If your child has a rash, if they are cranky and irritable, if they're not sleeping well, if they're hitting and punching things, if they're cursing at you, like really, you don't have to accept that's just a phase or that they're trying to act up or they're purposely being a brat or a jerk or whatever and punishing them. The first thing I would urge you to do is look at the food they just ate. Did they eat something with red food dyes, which has been known to cause regression? Did they just eat junk food? Did they just eat a whole bunch of dairy or wheat or sugar? And did you feed it to them? Did you feed it to them? Own your responsibility for what you're giving your children and say, wait a second, I bought this stuff. You know what? I'm going to stop buying this crap for a while. I'm going to see how this goes. Guess what, guys? We're going to organic for the next 2 weeks. This is the organic challenge. Go organic for 2 weeks and see, like, really 100% organic, 100%. Everything, or like even your ketchup, organic, everything. And I say this because people might be thinking, oh, 90-10 or 80-20, that's just a little bit is okay. No, you cannot put out a campfire by adding a teaspoon of fuel to it. You have to stop putting fuel in the campfire altogether. So if you want to stop inflammation in the gut, if you want to reduce their behavior issues, if you want people to sleep better in your house, for people to be nicer to each other, and for everybody to be more productive, you've got to go organic in my case, I noticed it was a couple of months, and we ended up having it be a couple of years, which was just what we all wanted to do. But within 2 weeks, you can notice a difference. So just try it and see for 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay, I'm on board. I'm sold. I'm like, man, that sounds like something that I definitely think that we should try, because I never even thought of that. Sometimes I just like, what in the world got into these kids? And then maybe that's literally it. What got into them? And
You
so,
can start logging it first and have them notice too. Like for one of my sons, he used to eat, that middle son, because he had the least amount of allergies. He seemed to be like a very healthy kid when he was little. I began to notice that on Fridays after he ate school lunches, that because Friday was his like treat day, I would give him $3.50 and he'd be able to buy school lunch. On that day, I noticed a pattern that he was getting in trouble. He was hitting his brother and he was losing his Saturday morning cartoon privileges because that was the
mm,
consequence. And after a while, I noticed, hey, do you think that this fight with your brother and losing those consequences might have something to do with you eating the school lunch at the school? No. Then he was in fourth grade. Like he didn't want to look at that. He just didn't. He wanted to be normal. He wanted to eat the school lunches. And after 3 or 4 more weeks of that happening, he was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna. Never mind, mom. I don't need the school lunch. I'm gonna make my own peanut butter and jelly sandwich today. He chose for himself because he noticed that food challenged him. That food created more aggression in him. He didn't feel good. When you don't feel good, when you're constipated, or when you're off, or your sugar levels are spiking, you're not going to behave well. You don't feel good. You don't be good. It's just, you can't expect kids to be good afterwards either if you're feeding them bad food.
yeah.
Stop it. Your kids to behave. If you're giving them Skittles and Slurpees and tacos that are made out of GMO corn and crap, we just have to shift what we're doing and take responsibility for what we're doing in our households.
So somebody that wants to take that step, like we're going to go all organic. We're going to take the challenge doing this for 2 weeks straight. Where do I even start? If I'm somebody that's never done it before, like, is there particular grocery stores or like brands or things that you would recommend that someone should start if they've never done this before?
Yes. First of all, get everything that's not organic out of your house, because you will not succeed if you have the food in your house that is not organic. And that's a tough thing to do, because that means clearing out the cupboards and taking out armfuls of food and putting it in grocery bags and giving them to a neighbor or whatever. That means, so first of all, get it out of your house. And then second of all, make a list of what you're going to eat that week for groceries, like what you're going to buy, and only buy what's on the list. Now, if you're getting rid of organic ketchup, you're going to have to buy a lot of condiments. You're going to have to slowly gain back your different spices and different things like that. You're going to have to switching all that over to organic. It does cost a lot of money. But once you have it, you'll notice it tastes better. It doesn't taste any different. It tastes better. And when you plan out your meals, you can save about 50% on your grocery store bill if you plan out your meals and only buy what's on the thing. And have staples, like always have some rice and beans in the house. Because if you've got rice and beans and some organic tortillas and a chicken that you cooked on Sunday, you've got, basically like Chipotle style burritos in your fridge. It takes the kids 3 minutes to put it together, wrap it up, stick it in the oven if you don't do a microwave, or toaster oven is even better, and heat that up for a few minutes. You've got a meal. So be prepared and buy bulk items. Buy organic rice, organic dried beans, soak them overnight, cook them the next morning. I love the Instapots. You can just cook beans in that. I mean, it causes potatoes to be like ready for mashed potatoes in 10 minutes in an Instapot. And I think beans are less than 30 minutes, even if they're just hard. You haven't soaked them and they're hard. and rice is less than 20 minutes. The Instant Pot is really great for fast preparation of food. And having organic rice and beans is not much more than regular, and especially when you buy in bulk.
Now, this might be a silly question, but I'm still going to ask it. And that is there any, okay, let's say like you're busy, you don't have time to prepare or get food ready. Is there any type of like fast food or anything like that you could get right away that's just food ready that doesn't have these GMOs or like any of these potential like toxins?
So it depends on where you live. There are some places that have organic fast food restaurants. There's some in Long Island, there's some in California. You just look up organic food as far as restaurants, and there are some places, and especially in major cities now, that have organic food.
Oh,
And there's also Annie's Organics in the grocery store aisle. Yeah, Amy's Kitchen has a lot of, and that's Amy's Kitchen also has a fast food place in Petaluma in California. So there are some brands that do have prepared food that's organic. And but just be careful because sometimes there'll be a pizza that'll say made with organic tomato sauce and vegetables, which is great, but the wheat is not organic and the cheese on it is not organic and the meat is not organic. It's tricky. It is tricky. And I would just urge you to do the 100% organic thing for 2 weeks, because if you're still introducing any small amount of the other foods and the pesticides, you don't get the full effect. So you could go the 2 weeks, but you're still eating some non-organic kale or something, like you think that's healthy, but you're still getting pesticides. And then you're like, gee, I wonder why I don't feel better. It's because you're still eating something that's not organic. You're still consuming the pesticides. And definitely stay away from protein powders as much as you can, unless you've found some testing on them. Detox Project did some testing, and even the organic protein powders were contaminated. I just urge you to people to stay away from highly processed food, even if it's organic, because there's a chance of that being contaminated or them using soy that's not really organic. In some products that can happen is contamination, or some cases of fraud have been detected. So the more you eat whole foods, a great dinner would just be some fish, like smaller fish is better, and some rice with salt, lemon pepper and some asparagus or something like that. Whole foods as much as possible.
oh,
Not
okay.
processed.
That helps me out a lot because actually, like, I thought I was doing a good thing. I've got protein shakes to try to keep up with my protein and things like that I do every morning. Which brings me to my next question then, is there any protein powders or are there any supplements or additional things that you would recommend that is there anything available that doesn't have these harmful things in it?
I appreciate you asking, and I don't have the answer for exactly which protein shakes did not test positive for glyphosate. I don't remember off the top of my head, but
Hmm.
Detox Project did do testing. So you can go to detoxproject.org and see their results for it was grocery store food, I think is what they called it, testing. There's several batches of testing that they did. They did breads at one time, and then another time they did protein powders. And what I would urge you to do is buy the simplest kind of protein powder that you can. For instance, hemp protein powder is what I buy. I don't remember the brand name of it, but it's a hemp protein powder that is highly unlikely to be contaminated with glyphosate, especially if it's organic. It's not like soy. The reason why soy and peas and lentils are likely to be contaminated with glyphosate is because 60 to 70% of the soy that we grow in the United States, like 85 to 90% of it is GMO, but 60 to 70% of it, we export to other countries for animal feed. However, 80% of the organic soy that we use in organic products, like your protein shakes, is imported from Turkey. And there have been circumstances where a container of soy from Turkey ends up at the Long Beach, what do you call it? Port, the trade port in Long Beach, California. And all of a sudden, that container becomes organic at the port, and it's worth $2 million more. They've logged it. They've tracked. They've seen the records where the container of soy leaves Turkey, it's worth X amount of dollars. And when it arrives at the Los Angeles port, all of a sudden it's worth $2 million more. That's because they have fraudulently labeled that soy organic. And then that soy ends up in protein shakes, and the manufacturers think they've purchased organic soy, but it's really not. So processed foods with soy in it, right? Organic processed foods with soy in it historically, there has been incidences to show that it could be fraudulently labeled organic. And that's a huge problem.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. So, so when you guys made this shift into this, did you get any pushback from the kids or the family? Like, what did they think about it when you discovered all this and you did it? Or were they just on board and you guys made the shift and you saw so much results that you guys were like, we've got to, like, how did that unfold?
That's a good question too. So when my son was 9 years old, my eldest son was 9 years old, he was sitting at the breakfast table one day and he had this red rash on his mouth. Now, this is the son had almost died on Thanksgiving evening when he was 5 from pecans in the stuffing. He had to go to ER. I had to basically will him back to life by pushing on his chest in the car.
Wow.
We had to use the EpiPen. It's in my book. It's a terrifying story. And so he dealt with allergies for many years, and we were just resigned and doubtful, like it was never going to change. Going to a friend's house was like going to a minefield. Is he going to pick up a cookie on the coffee table as a 6-year-old and eat it and end up in the hospital, which is what happened? And is that going to happen or not? I was just constantly concerned. But one day when he was 9 years old, he was sitting at the breakfast table and he looked at me and said, "Mom, I wish all my allergies would go away." And I said, "Me too, buddy." But in my head, I was thinking, that's never going to happen because the doctors told me that it was only going to get worse, especially the nut allergy. It could kill him. Food could kill him. And so but I took a step back and I realized, wait a second, what am I saying in my head? What is that voice saying to me? That voice is saying something that's very disempowering. It sees my son as small. It sees me as small. And that's not what I'm committed to. I had created this possibility. I did this program called Landmark, which I love. And I created this possibility of being courageous, creative, and a huge contribution to the world. And that voice in my head was not in alignment with that. I said, what if there was something that we could do? And then I remembered my cousin Sarah, who had gone gluten-free for a year. And she was then able, after she healed her gut, she was able to eat a slice of pizza at a birthday party or a piece of wedding cake at a wedding and not have a huge reaction. So I asked him, I told Ben the story and I said, would you like to someday be able to eat a slice of pizza at a birthday party? Because at that time that was not happening. We were bringing all his food, right? He had 20 different allergies. And so he said, yes. And I said, well, then would you be my partner? Would you drink green drinks, try acupuncture? Would you do whatever it takes? Because in my head, I'm thinking now, I will eat birdseed with this kid if I had to, right? I shifted my perspective. And so he looked at me and he thought seriously about it. And he said, yes. And I said, then I shook his hand. I said, then I promise you, buddy, you will get better. And that was a scary kind of like white light moment for me. I didn't know. It was like God talking through me. I didn't know how that was going to happen. I was just trusting. I didn't know. But what I did know is that if I made a promise to my son, I would do things that I never otherwise would have done. And if we had partnership, we would accomplish things that we otherwise never would have accomplished. And we did that. We watched GMO movies, OMG, OMG. We watched Genetic Roulette. We watched King Corn. We watched The Future of Food, maybe not all at once. He was 9 years old. He could sit and watch 20, 30 minutes of it.
Wow.
And he actually got really into it. And within 4 months of going GMO free, because at the time I wasn't completely clued in on the organic thing yet, but we went GMO free. And within 4 months, we saw that his allergy that came back again. We determined what that allergy was with the red line around his mouth and his lips swollen up. It was a carrageenan allergy, which is a seaweed food thickener that's in hot dogs, ice cream, lunch meats, and things like that. And so when he was subjected to that again by accident in lunch meat, it was even in organic lunch meats at the time, he had a faint pink line reaction. It only lasted for 2 days instead of big puppy lips, 2 weeks. So his allergic reaction was reduced because we weren't putting GMOs with glyphosate on them and all of that in his stomach on a daily basis. We had cleared out the GMOs. And then when my other son had that autism symptom issue, and we went 100% organic. We did that for the whole family. Then my eldest son with those allergies, within 1 year of doing that, his allergies went from a 19 down to a point 0.2. So he no longer had life-threatening allergies. And you can imagine, as a mother who for years was afraid that her son would die from food,
Mm.
what peace of mind that brought to me, how priceless that was, that my son no longer had a life-threatening allergy to walnuts and pecans and different types of nuts. And so he's gone on to only eat organic. Like, he will sit in a restaurant and not eat anything if other people are eating. He just will only eat organic. He's an organic, whole food, plant-based diet person.
Nice.
And he has not had to go to a doctor for any other reason except for a sports checkup for 10 years.
Wow. That is amazing. That is so powerful. Thank you. And so this story you said is in your book, Unstoppable?
Yes. Yes.
And where
Many stories. Yeah. Yes. And we have emails and texts and tweets and letters. I have letters from people around the world, from Japan, from Ireland, from Scotland, from across the United States, saying, thank you so much for what you're doing. We switched my child to 100% organic diet, and 85% of her autism symptoms went away. Things
Wow.
like that. All kinds of letters. Somebody's fibromyalgia went away. Somebody else's MS symptoms went away. Somebody else's migraines went away. Chronic migraines for 10 years. So I don't know how it's going to impact you and your family, but I would submit that probably you'll notice better sleeping right away, which puts you in a better mood, which makes you a nicer person to be around to your family members, has you think better and be more productive. Rashes could go away. Your skin quality could clear up. There's a lot of people with like blotchy pink skin that just looks like it looks sickly, right? It looks very unhealthy. So a lot of people, once their gut health starts getting better, their skin on their face looks better as well. And all kinds of symptoms that could be reduced. Diabetic issues can be reduced. There's a lot of issues, especially the mood one is a big one.
Wow. So you've got that in the book, Unstoppable by Zen Honeycutt. Are there any other resources that you would provide to people that are like ready to do this?
Yeah, sure. On our website, if you want more science, under our data page, you can see all the scientific studies that you want regarding why this is important to do. We have on our frequently asked questions page, we have a question that says, my child has behavioral issues or health issues. What do I do? And I have a step-by-step process of the types of things that you may want to do. I'm not a doctor, but these are just things that we've got feedback from other families and from my family on a process that what you can do to start recovering your children's health. Definitely cut out the processed foods, the soda. I'm sorry, but nobody should be drinking soda. Okay, no sodas and candy bars and stuff like that just have to go. Keep desserts and sweets for special occasion only. Okay, for birthdays, for holidays, for special occasions. Do not have dessert every single night after dinner. Have some fruit instead. Have some cut up oranges. Have something else that's not highly processed sugar. Cut out highly processed sugar as much as possible. And for a lot of people with gut issues, they need to switch to gluten-free and organic. And what I was urged to do when I was told I needed to go gluten-free was cut out, and I needed to do a parasite cleanse. I did a parasite cleanse, gluten-free, and I avoided dairy for, I think it was dairy for 6 weeks and gluten for 6 months. And within 6 weeks of going gluten-free and dairy-free and doing a parasite cleanse, I lost 16 pounds with no exercise. And
Wow.
this was after my second child. I had my waist curved in again. I could wear a bikini again after 2 children. And just going gluten-free and dairy-free and doing some type of cleanse can really make a difference for your health. So within that 2 weeks, if you can swing that too, bring that in there and do a cleanse. And there's lots of different cleanses out there, but mine was mostly psyllium husk and apple cider juice with a little bit of chlorophyll and aloe. And I think that was it. But that psyllium husk is like a natural scrubby brush for the inside of your intestines and just pushes out any gunk that's been stuck in there. And I think I took cascara as well for parasites, herbs along with that. And But talk to your holistic doctor or your naturopath, or I went to an iridologist who was also licensed as a naturopath, and that really helped.
Wow, very cool. I'm excited to try this out. I can't wait to see like the potential results. And then also too, hearing you're gonna lose weight in addition to the health, that's like awesome.
Mhm.
I think probably the biggest one for us, the biggest issue would be like we've got a family tradition on the weekends where Fridays and Saturday mornings we go out and get donuts. So I'm guessing that's probably like really bad. So we'll have to think of some sort of organic, like healthy replacement for that celebration. But yeah, like so,
You could do something like bringing fruit with you and going on a hike. Do an activity together or play a game together, cornhole or go kayaking. I don't know where you live and what type of things you can do. But just say, hey guys, this morning we're going to go on X, Y, and Z adventure. Don't say we're not going to go get donuts. Focus on what you are going to do. Create a new adventure, a new opportunity, and bring the fruit with you. The trail mix or the organic trail mix with chocolate chips in it. It's really great if it's organic, and organic strawberries, organic pineapples, whatever, and bring that with you. And if they say, wait, what about donuts? Say, today we're going on a special adventure. So focus on what you're creating, right? Rather than taking things away, because then they're going to feel like they're deprived. But what you eventually want to get to is them recognizing that sugary foods and that wheat and that dairy is not a treat. It's a threat to their health. It's a threat to the peace of mind of your family. It's a threat to your harmony, because you will probably notice that after you have those foods, oftentimes kids act up and they misbehave. So just start to notice that first and ask them if they notice it. Hey, you're in a fight with your do you think it might have something to do with that all that sugar you just ate? You don't have to say donuts, but like all that sugar you
mhm,
just keep that in mind. Let's just check that out next time. Like, how do you feel next time you have that? Do you know
okay,
what I mean? Have them notice it first and then start to substitute with an exciting adventure.
very cool. Okay, will do. And then for anybody that wants to support your cause, because this is amazing, is there any resources or any places they should go that they could do if they wanted to support your mission?
Yeah,
What should they do?
we appreciate that so much. We urge you to go to momsacrossamerica.com or .org. We have both of them. We have a donate page. We have a connect page where you can sign up for our newsletter and get an invitation as well to our Moms Connect call. And we have a lot of testing that we've been doing. We tested school lunches, we tested fast food, we tested loaded cereal. We're finding heavy metals and toxins in practically everything. And we need to expose what's going on with the food supply and hold the manufacturers and our government to account. So we urge you to go to our website and look at those test results, share them with your friends and family. I'm on TikTok. That has the results there have they're not censored, so it's really reached a lot of people. Instagram and Facebook also we're on there, and Twitter. So follow us, comment, share the information. And if you can donate, then your money will go towards doing things like getting more food tested, supporting us to go to Washington, D.C. and meet with senators and representatives and really make a case for having safe, non toxic, nutrient dense food.
Wow, that is awesome. So thank you so much, Zen, for being on today. And this is so awesome. I'm looking forward to doing this with my family as well. And I hope that this is a blessing to so many people that are seeing this. Appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And we'd love to hear from you. Anybody who does the organic 2 week challenge, let us know how you feel.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.